If I turn this off, does that look less red?
Oh, no, no, it's fine. You don't look bright pink. That's okay. We look the same pink.
Good. Cool.
Yeah, you
Right, let's
you
do
can
it.
turn your light back on. You don't have
No, I'm
to
not
sit
doing
in
it
the
now.
sun.
You've abused me. You turn it off.
Well, you know me. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the A Paratrooper and a Yogi Walk into a Bar podcast. I'm going to talk a little slowly here so nobody misses the introduction of Mr. Andrew Fox. So, as people are joining Mr. Andrew Fox, uh, feel free to turn on your light. I had him. I made a comment that made him turn off his light. It's like the middle of the night there, right?
No, I'm in the
So,
dark now. I'm in the dark, literally and figuratively.
yeah, yeah. And again, every week a new look. Mr. Masad is in the house. So anyway, hey, I just walked into this bar and there he is, the brainy, brawny barfly himself, Andrew Fox. And that's Mr. Andrew Fox here on Substack and X, and also the co-host of the Brink podcast. Everybody, if you don't already know, Andrew has this new weekly conflict roundup feature for subscribers so you can stay apprised and informed about the global chaos that exists beyond just Israel. And so you can get a broader perspective on what war is and what it really looks like. Subscribe and learn, folks. Subscribe and learn.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. That was my first attempt. It was a little bit
I
longer
loved
than what
it.
we usually do. Yeah, I just thought there were so many little conflicts that nobody had ever heard of that actually was useful to give people a little once over as to some of the craziness. So next week, South America, which is quite timely, I suspect.
Wow.
But on to the introduction. Shana Meyerson, there she is. The host of the Yoga of War podcast, which you can find wherever you do podcasty stuff. And you can find her here on Substack as well. So please do give her a subscribe. She does some excellent writing on all things Middle East. And coined the phrase, the iconic phrase "Turkey" to describe Qatar and Turkey's holy alliance. And yeah, so tonight I'm bright red faced. I've just come out of a hot bath after going on a dog walk that was like sideways rain the entire time and freezing
Oh,
cold. So I threw myself into a warm bath, but I am quite warm. Sorry about that. And
nice.
tonight I'm representing a minor league American soccer team, the mighty Indy 11.
Uh, you are the single biggest American sports fan in England, but I have to give you a lot of credit that I never hear you talking about cricket, which, from what I understand, is the most boring sport in the history of
No,
mankind.
it's awesome. It's awesome. It's the same as baseball. You go there and you drink wine or beer and eat nice food, and some sport occasionally happens.
Yeah.
And then when some sport happens, you go, "Oh, look, some sport!" Round of applause, and then you go back to doing what you were doing. It's great. It's just like baseball.
I hear it takes like half a day. Baseball only takes like 2 or 3 hours.
I know 5 days for a test match if it goes to
Oh,
the full
5 days.
length,
No, just like baseball.
and then you can have a draw, and then you can have a draw at the end of it.
Yeah, no wonder you like minor league American soccer when you've got the choices that you've got.
It's all good. So, what are we talking about tonight? Over to you.
Yeah, I'd like to start with an issue that's personal to me and as an American, and also you as a veteran, which is to say, following up on this murder in D.C. By this Afghani refugee. Um, I prefer not to give these people names because I think that's part of the thing that they like. So I am going to give names, however, to the two National Guardsmen or women, one man, one woman, that he shot. Andrew Wolf, whose name is disturbingly close to your name, Andrew Fox, who is in critical condition. And I hope that everybody will send him prayers for healing. And as most or all of you know, Sarah Beckstrom, who was actually murdered that day. Um, it's so disturbing as an American to see terror on American soil, just as it is to see terror anywhere, but of course, when it starts hitting home, um, it becomes a lot more personal, and I think a lot more disturbing because now there's nothing theoretical about it. Not that this is particularly new in the last year or two, but it's just the latest and greatest. Now, this guy, yes, he was yelling Allahu Akbar. But I have to say that even with my vigilant terrorist DAR that is always on in full force, I'm reluctant to call this an Afghan collaborator problem versus just a problem with a particular Afghan collaborator. I was listening to a CNN interview with Frank Luntz this weekend, which I found interesting because Frank is a very conservative guy. So it was funny that they had him on CNN, but never mind. He's also a great Israel supporter. So for anybody who didn't know that. Anyway, he made the point that one incident is really just like a random act of violence. Twice is considered to be a trend, and three times is a pattern that needs to be taken seriously. Now, a couple days after the shooting, another Afghani was arrested in Texas for threatening to blow up a building in Fort Worth. So, for those of you keeping score at home, that's two. So, before we hit on number three, sorry guys, I pulled a muscle today. I'm in extraordinary pain and can barely breathe, but I'm doing my best to show up. Anyway,
Yoga is really, really bad for you, is the lesson there.
just like taking a big inhale for my next thought is like, oh. Anyway, before we hit number three, Andrew, you actually completed 3 tours in Afghanistan, and you have invaluable knowledge, insight, and experience that most people don't have, and I certainly don't have. So I am hoping to get some insight from you on this. So my first question is, can you talk to us briefly about like your personal experience with Afghan collaborators while you were in active military service?
Yeah, so mixed bag is really the bottom line. First of all, I don't think collaborator is the best term to use. I think ally is a far better term because that these guys were fighting and dying right next to us. Um, it's very much the case that we couldn't have operated there without them. And on the tour I did with the U.S. Army Special Forces, the Green Berets, we were with an ODA, an Operational Detachment Alpha, training these guys to go out and do strike operations and take down the Taliban. And they were brave guys who operated to a very high standard. Actually, I'd happily go to war alongside them again. They were good guys, and these are the ones who, when the Afghan National Army collapsed, were the last ones to fight, to keep fighting. And there are videos that I saw of these teams running out of ammunition and being executed. One of the guys I knew sent me a video from Kandahar airfield where it was essentially they're out of ammunition, they were waiting on the airstrip, and they were just waiting to find out if the Taliban would get there first or if the helicopter to take them out would get there first. It was dark, dark stuff, and they were brave, brave men. Likewise, the interpreters, they'd be alongside us in firefights without a weapon. And yeah, they were well paid for an Afghan. Also, it's Afghan, not Afghani, by the way. And the Afghani was the currency. Afghan is the nationality.
Thank you.
Um, so these Afghans were, they were brave guys. But then again, you had the line ANA, your average ANA, who were dross. Frankly, they were not the elite of Afghan society, should we say. Serious drug problems, serious corruption problems, serious issues with discipline and desertion and changing sides. I remember my third tour. It was with 11 Light Brigade, and um, the regimental sergeant major, Daz Chant, and a bunch of his guys were executed asleep in their beds by one of the Afghans they were training. He just opened fire. And then a friend of mine was actually the first, he was a Yorkshire Regiment officer, sort of Royal Yorkshires now, but they were Yorkshire Regiment at the time. He was the first guy on the scene, like a week into his tour, and he said it was carnage, absolutely horrible. Um, and then poor old chap, he got shot himself about a week later. So I think he lasted 2 weeks on the tour and then went home and had those two awful things happen to him. So he didn't have a good one. But yeah, Dave's fine now, by the way. He's very inspirational on X, actually.
Yeah. Where is
Dave,
he?
Dave Wiseman, you can look him up. He's a really impressive dude. His story of recovery is pretty awesome. Um, so yeah, this is a mixed bag. And look, I was also heavily involved with the evacuations afterwards. And I was a captain at Sandhurst as a platoon commander, so training a platoon of young officer cadets. And we had Afghans at the academy, and one of them was in my platoon, a guy called Shawali Khan. Lovely guy, real gentle bloke. He was in his 30s when he came to Sandhurst. He was a lot older than the cadets. Struggled with the PT a little bit, but it was a trier and a good guy. And he disappeared on WhatsApp when the Taliban took over, and then popped up about 6 weeks later, where he had been running around Khost province in Afghanistan as an intelligence officer, moving house every night with his wife and 6 children under 10. Um, and we got him into a safe house, and we got him out to the UK, and he's doing really well in Scotland. So, you know, we got a lot of good people out, but there's a
Yeah.
load of stuff we have to unpack when you look at that body of Afghans. First thing is the Americans, and in the words of my friend Bashir, who I really should have invited on this, and we might do another episode where we get Bashir on, because he's a really good dude. He was an interpreter, and his brother was my fixer in Kabul when I was running a little ring of safe houses. Um, so Bashir said, Andrew, the Americans didn't screen anyone. They took hundreds and thousands of utterly useless people. So, a lot of the Afghans America took weren't screened. They weren't properly security vetted. They weren't in a good place. Now, this guy who murdered the 2 National Guardsmen actually was, but his story's a bit strange as well, because he was recruited as a 15-year-old child soldier working on CIA Black Ops. And so there's all sorts of weird shit going on there.
Hmm.
But stand fast that America did take a lot of really dodgy Afghans who weren't properly screened. Because you remember those scenes from the airport, you had people hanging on
Yeah.
the wheels of planes as they took off, hundreds of people rammed into the backs of C-17s, and, brutal scenes. And I've spoken to my friends who were there on the ground, and they said it was horrifyingly awful. One of my old corporals was the first responder to the Abbey Gate bombing. He
Mm.
just handed over to the American section that got smashed. It went bang as he was walking back to his accommodation, and he ran back and started securing the scene. And he got mentioned in dispatches, which is like a Bronze Star in US money. So, my friends were there. They said it was horrendous. And the next thing we have to pack, certainly from a British perspective, is we've had a huge amount of illegal Afghan immigration coming across the channel in those small boats, and they've had a really bad record for crime, which is a real problem. And then on top of that, you have the British government made a huge mess and released all the names by accident of all the people on their lists, and then took the decision to just evacuate all of them, so that we had 14,000 unscreened people come as well. So there are real problems with this Afghan
Yeah.
immigration, but that doesn't change the fact that my personal view is we owed our allies a debt. We abandoned them under Trump's deal. We we know they would have been killed, and many of them have been executed, murdered in the streets, particularly their special forces, who the Taliban knew were the biggest threat to their stability.
Yeah. I want to.
And we saved an awful lot of lives, and I think that's something we should be proud of, and it's something we should have done. Is my take.
Absolutely. What I wanted to ask you, Andrew, like one question that popped into my mind, for example, because intentions and actions, as we know, don't necessarily align. Genocide, um, and others. So I want to know first of all, like how risky was it for local Afghans to collaborate with the Allied troops, or was it actually safer to be on our team? Meaning, is it possible that there were people with bad intentions but good actions because they thought it could save their lives, and that's why they became collaborators?
And again, when you say collaborators, it really does depend what you mean.
I know. I just
Yeah,
mean
well,
everybody, like the
people who
interpreters,
worked
the
with
people who
us,
were fighting
worked with
with
us.
us,
Yeah, okay.
the whole.
So yeah, just Walter. It was Trump's deal that Biden then cocked up. So just to clarify, Trump signed the Doha deal. Biden made a shambles of the execution. Um, in terms of our Afghan allies, they were a mixed bag. Like the ANA, your average bod, um, variety of factors, pay. It's something to do. These were just there were a lot of not very good people in the
Okay.
A&M, quite frankly, even down to their officers, like huge corruption at like the general ranks. And we got fully played. Well, I wouldn't say I include myself in the we. Our politicians and our generals got badly played by their Afghan opposite numbers. They were taken for a ride financially, a lot of corruption. Huge numbers of soldiers were signed up when never actually existed, and yet their wages were still drawn, and that went straight to the general or the colonels. So loads of dodginess went on. But my commandos, again, I'd go to war with them tomorrow. They were brilliant, and they were motivated, and they had to be, because, and bottom line is this works in every army. I think selected and trained soldiers are always a higher standard, because you have to have something about you to get through those selection courses. Be they British paratroopers, be they US Green Berets or Navy SEALs or Afghan commandos. It's a universal language. If you train and have a very high selection bar course for a troop, they will be a better quality. It just is what it is, and they were great.
Yeah, so I don't want to spend too much time on this because I do want to move on to other topics. But one other thought or question that crossed my mind is, I obviously I look a lot at Gaza, and these are people who are so desperately radicalized that, we look at Al Shabaab, for example, we're like, okay, well, they're fighting with the IDF, but that doesn't mean they could be trusted as
Mm.
allies. They for whatever political or whatever gains, but at the heart of it, these are highly radicalized in, as you're also indicating, corrupt populations. So I'm wondering that at the root of it, barring the amazing blokes that worked with you directly, I think that's the only time I've used blokes in my entire life. I don't.
We're
It
slowly
just,
corrupting you into British English week
yeah,
on week.
just rolled off the tongue. I'm wondering, do you think in general the Afghan refugees, since so many of them were unvetted, both there and here, um, are more prone to patriotism or assimilation or further radicalization, which is certainly in no short supply?
I mean, look, I'm still in touch with all the cohort that I helped evacuate, and we shifted 3,000 people, mostly women and children, actually,
Hmm.
because Afghans have big families. We shifted 3,000 people to safety, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm still in touch with my crew. We still have a group WhatsApp, and we still talk and chat and make jokes. And I know that I've got Kabuli Palau, which is their rice dish, waiting for me in any household I go to where they've resettled. And they're all doing really well. One of them's senior management at Amazon now. He started packing boxes and got picked for management straight away, and he's doing really well.
Wow.
One of them's opened his own shop. One of them's just started his own business, helping Afghans integrate, and that's the important thing. They all came here incredibly grateful for what we did to bring them to safety and save their lives. And they talk about how they want their kids to speak English, they want them to be British, they want them to thrive in UK society, and that cohort, fantastic. And they're wonderfully polite, humble people. I'm very, very fond of them. But as you say, the unvetted is a huge problem, because I've seen the darker side of Afghan society as well.
Yeah.
And look, these people who are coming across the channel, a lot of them aren't great. I mean, some of them are. Some of them are
Yeah.
fantastic. I know a former interpreter who had to come here. Um, he had to come here for his own safety and couldn't get out legally and came here illegally, but he's still great and doing a good job. But that doesn't mean they all are, and you need to vet people and they need to integrate. And this is a much wider problem. It's not just Afghan, it's all
Sure.
immigration. If you don't get that integration piece going, you create parallel societies. They never move beyond the norms of their own societies, which frankly sometimes don't. I don't believe all societies are equal.
Yeah.
Um, and Sarah's saying, do they want to return to their country when it's safe? And yeah, some of them I think they will. The others, of course, they put down roots here, and then that becomes really hard
Yeah.
to uproot, because if you've got a 12, 15-year-old kid, in school about to do their, what we have
Sure.
in the UK, like GCSEs or like high school diploma, whatever you call it. You're not going to want to uproot those kids and take them back to Afghanistan. So I can understand that dichotomy and that challenge for them emotionally. But also, the odds of Afghanistan being safe for these people in the short term is pretty tiny, quite frankly.
Yeah, I also think, though, Andrew, that the decision of what's safe is subjective, and I say this because Trump has decided that Syria is safe, and now, like, it seems like a lot of the Syrian refugees are being expelled from Europe. I wouldn't exactly say that Al Jilani's Syria is, some safe haven for these people who are looking for a better life. So I could see not wanting to uproot your life, but also that I think these expulsions are going to become more and more common as we realize that, unfortunately, one bad apple could ruin the whole bushel, or whatever you call a lot of apples,
Yeah,
right?
and I think as a final note, it's worth adding that the Afghans I know are furious with that guy who murdered those two
Yeah,
National Guardsmen. Like they're furious. I think
yeah,
they would quite happily stomp him to death themselves, um, just because they think it's appalling and disgusting, and they want nothing to do with it, and they don't want to be contaminated with his you know his
yeah.
actions. And so I can completely understand that, and I respect them for openly saying that as well.
Yeah, that's very that's a trait that's very prominent in the Jewish community also, which is the mass collectivism, collective responsibility. Sorry, me, words, they don't necessarily go together.
Yeah,
But that
especially when you're severely wounded.
yeah, it's just a shanda, right? If a shanda, like a big old shame, if any, like any Jewish person, Epstein, oh my gosh, right? Like but this is also, it's not just this collective responsibility, but it's also the collective responsibility that the world puts on us. Like, because he was Jewish, therefore all Jews are bad. So in a way we're forced into a corner, but in a way it's also cultural. Oh, by the way, I just want to make a side note about the cultural thing about Jews wanting dead bodies. Sorry, this is such a tangent. But remember, we talked about this a few weeks ago with the hostages, and I said how
Ah,
important
yes,
it was. And you
yeah.
said, I think that's a Jewish thing, wanting like dead bodies to come home. There was an article actually in JNS today about Sudi Stock's parents who are desperate to get his dead body home. So I think that it is transcultural. I think it's definitely a Jewish value, but I do think there are other cultures that give some sort of like high level of responsibility to bury their dad in a meaningful and
Yeah,
dignified
maybe
way.
I'm just cold and dead inside, and
Yes,
an uber
that,
realist when it comes to foreign affairs.
that's actually what I was getting at, but I didn't want to put it in words.
I'll take that.
Okay, next topic. What I'd love to get into, based on a little friendly chat that went on in my subscriber chat, that you got a little bit involved in there. You dipped in your toe and sort of went a bit explosive. Is this concept of Putin, good guy or bad guy? Take it away.
Look, Hitler, good guy or bad guy? Pol Pot, good guy or bad guy? Like the question is so fundamentally stupid. And you know what? I had an American friend who actually said to me, "I wish Putin was our president instead of Joe Biden." I was like, "Dude, like what? Like mind blowing, mind blowing."
And he's still your friend?
We kind of fell out over Trump a little bit, but he's gone a bit MAGA. But look, the Putin piece, like the behaviour of Russia in parts of Ukraine, is fully on a par with Hamas on 7th of October. We're talking rapes, we're talking mutilation, we're talking murder, we're talking, similar to, blowing rockets into civilian houses. This is the same playing field. The idea that Putin is somehow a good guy that you can negotiate with, and Russia should be reintegrated into the world sort of financial systems, is just beyond parody. This backwater. And yeah, sorry, Sarah's made a great point. Poisoning his enemies. We've had executions on British soil using polonium, using what was the other one they used in Salisbury? I forget. But yeah, another really serious nerve agent they used on British soil. These are
Hmm.
weapons of
Hmm.
mass destruction. Um, that could have gone horribly wrong in Salisbury if that poison had spread further than it did. Fortunately, it was relatively contained. Um, Yeah, and there's so much evil that Putin has done, and the Russians are behaving like complete animals in Ukraine. And you can find it yourself, the execution videos of Russian soldiers executing Ukrainian captives. You can look at Mariupol, you can look at the Bucha massacre. The fact that Trump is treating this guy to red carpet treatment in Alaska is just obscene. Just obscene. Imagine how you'd feel if Sinwar had had the same treatment and he'd
Yeah.
be flown to Washington for red carpet treatment because it's really important that we stop the war in Gaza. So we're going to bring Yahya Sinwar here to have a peace negotiation with the US president. That's the level of depravity Trump is dropping to when he goes to that level with Putin. This guy is an obscenity. And the idea that this deal that Trump proposed, that they should have no
Right.
kind of culpability or accountability for their actions.
Yeah.
Mind blowing how far the White House has fallen when it comes to Putin.
And the 20,000 abducted children, which is the thing that
Ah,
always
yeah, we didn't even
like.
mention them. Yeah, we've put into re-education camps and come back traumatized and not able to speak Ukrainian because they've
Yeah.
been getting brainwashed in Russian, essentially prisoner camps. It's just horrendous.
Yeah. Before I respond to that, I have to go off on another tangent really quickly. Did you see this new report that oh, no, Mohammed Sinwar, his brother, was working for B'Tselem, the
Yeah,
human
I
rights
did.
organization
I
in Israel?
did. I mean, I didn't.
That
I
is,
looked at the photo. I looked at the photo, and I wasn't completely convinced it was the same Mohammed Sinwar. But it's a hell of a story.
yeah, I mean, especially because,
Have
he,
you seen formal confirmation beyond the photo?
um, like you, I'm in a lot of sort of insider chat groups, and some of them have confirmed. I don't know, but all I want to say is that like these as a Jew organizations are almost invariably led by the Muslim Brotherhood or someone affiliated with them, and for everybody who's like, oh, well, Israel is genocidal, even B'Tselem says so. It's like, okay, well, even B'Tselem is using Hamas as their board of directors or whatever. So I think it's relevant. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that before I forgot because you said the word Sinwar. Let's get back to the topic at
No,
hand.
I pressed the Sinwar button. I'm sorry.
You pressed the Sinwar button. It's a button that hasn't been pressed in a while, but then yesterday and then
No,
you, and now it's like,
because fortunately he is rotting, which is a
yeah,
real shame.
yeah. So, in response to what you're saying about Putin, first I do want to say that I'm not an expert on anything other than Israel and in yoga. I'm really good at those two things. I don't feign to be anything otherwise. So I say this because unlike all the TikTok jihadis who claim to know everything there is to know about Israel and the Jews, I just want to come clean that I can only speak about Putin in broad terms from just personal observations and opinions. So I am not here as an expert like Andrew is. But here's what I see. I've been saying quite honestly since Obama won that we are witnessing the fall of the great American empire. I know you mostly see this as a Trump thing. I see this as bipartisan, and I think that it started when Obama started saying that we're such a bad country and apologizing for American greatness. In all of history, there's never been an empire, no matter how big or how powerful, that has not been relegated to the dustbin of history. It's inevitable. This is how the world ebbs and flows. I do think that America is different than, honestly, all previous empires because we have willingly assumed the role of protectorate of the free world. And ultimately, no other nation has ever done more to help other countries in its time of need. You could say what you want about America being good, bad, or indifferent, but we take care of the world. We just do. That being said, when America does fall, I fear that it will be a dark and apocalyptic day in hell, as no one will step in to fill that void. Like China, Russia, Iran, Qatar, like whatever comes next, I assure you that it will not involve teaching the world to sing in perfect harmony. Watching Trump cozying up to the evilest, I don't even know if evilest is a word, most
Most
evil,
evil.
most evil. Evil is like just, shortens it. The most evil of dictators, and sending his envoy, his special envoy and BFF, Steve Witkoff, to lick their butts clean has been heartbreaking. And quite honestly, it's been infuriating to watch. If it takes selling out to the dark side in order to achieve world peace, I do believe the cost is too high. America is, we're selling our soul to the devil, and the whole world is going to have to pay the price.
Yeah, fully agree. And the Pax Americana is, where can you put a finger on it ending? And I think potentially that Afghan withdrawal is one of the real low watermarks of this, where it created a situation where American allyship has a timer on it or a price on it,
I
and
read that
we're
somewhere
seeing
this
that
morning.
accelerating. Yeah,
Just
you may
this
have done.
morning.
There you go.
Where
Might be
did
on
I
Substack
see
somewhere.
that?
To be fair, it's quite a famous saying.
Yeah.
Um, it's not a Fox original. It's a relatively well known. I think again it was said at the sort
Yeah.
of 2021 period when Kabul fell.
Yeah.
Um, and that has been to a certain extent the case since Vietnam, potentially with the withdrawal there, but I don't think it's been as explicit. America's been a solid ally since then to countries like Kuwait, the
Mm-hmm.
first Gulf War, and a variety of other countries around the world. But there's this strange thing where Trump has just turned everything into a business deal. I don't know if you saw the Wall Street Journal thing at the weekend. It was astonishing reading, where the Trump administration queued up to make all kinds of business deals with Russia when they're readmitted to the world economic uh, hierarchy, as it were. So yeah, it's a sad time. Whether there's a way back, who knows? But
Yeah.
it ain't going to be under this car crash disaster of a presidency.
Again, like, I think that I do think his ultimate goal is to be known as the peace president. And I do think his ultimate goal is to create peace. But if the only way to create peace is to give everything to the world's worst actors, then who's in charge of the world order? And oh, I also have to say, sorry, another side remark. I was watching the FDD morning brief, and there was this guy who had like these lights like in front of his face in like a really funny way that I couldn't even look at him without laughing. And I could see it, the sun is about to encroach on me in that like same way. So I just want
Ah,
to.
got you. Yeah, if
Anyway.
this were happening at 10 a.m., it'd be the same here. Don't worry about it. If
Yeah,
you need
yeah,
to move, you
yeah.
move. I don't.
We
I don't want
always
you.
pick
I
bars
don't want you
that
getting
have like
blinded.
really, yeah, good lighting. Anyway,
um,
so.
but he wants peace for his own aggrandizement. And look, peace isn't. Sorry, war is not a bug of humanity. It's a feature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we've had an unprecedented era since 1945 of relative peace, and we still
Mm-hmm.
live in a relatively peaceful world. But that is a tiny blip in the history of humanity. War is, a natural feature, unfortunately, of human beings. Peace just isn't going to happen. And as you say, even if you make a deal with Putin, he's not going to stick to it.
Yeah.
Our enemies like China and Russia attack us on multiple axes. It doesn't look like tanks rolling across the border somewhere. They attack us economically. They do sabotage. They undermine our societal cohesion. That's a stated Russian aim, is to find specific cracks
Yeah.
within our societies and then drive a wedge through them.
Yeah.
This is a long-established tactic. They're not going to stop conflict just because they've signed a deal with Trump. What they'll do is they'll take the money, they'll take the deals, they'll make their profits, and then they will repurpose them into their
Right.
attacks on the West.
Well, they're
So
also going to
it's
get big
incredibly
chunks
naive.
of, they're also going to get big chunks of Ukraine, right? I mean, just like I also want to talk about what's going on in Gaza right now, but just like ultimately, Hamas has even more control over a de facto state than it did before. Oddly enough, has been given this mandate over 95% of the population just in a smaller area. So it's like, at what expense peace? Let's say that peace somehow does emerge from this, and it's just, again, like, just all these bad actors getting everything they could possibly want. Then, I mean, that's just an extraordinary price, even for such an extraordinary, let's say, accomplishment. Now, again, Andrew, I'm going to say, and I've said it before, I'm way more concerned with actions than intentions at this point when it comes to peace. I don't really care if his reason for wanting peace is for a peace prize, if it winds up in an appropriate peace. All I want is to see, peace, safety, and security for, the world. I want to sing kumbaya. I want to hold hands. I want to do the things,
You are
but
the yoga
not
master
with
after all.
terrorists, huh?
You are the yoga master after all.
Yes, and mostly there's a lot of kumbaya. So, okay.
Problem in the West. Walter's like, our problem in the West is not Russia, it's Islam. Look, it's Russia as well. Russia are monsters. They're a monstrous, monstrous country with malign intention towards us. And you can have more than one problem, frankly, would be my
Yeah.
counterpoint to that.
Yeah.
Someone's just asked about the video of 6 veterans about illegal orders. Yeah, they're correct. Don't follow an illegal order. And there is all this chat about that shipwreck crew and everyone's taking a position. But I asked a guy called Jeffrey Korn, who is a military lawyer originally, now a professor in international, military law. And his bottom line was, we need more information. I'm fine with that. That's a good answer as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned, as we don't know if it's illegal or not.
Yeah.
So Jeff, if Jeff, I'm going to go with what Jeffrey says, because I'm not an expert in that area particularly, and if that's what Jeffrey's saying, it's almost certainly a good answer.
Okay, Andrew Fox, I think it's time for you to invest in better internet. I keep getting pop-ups that your internet is unstable.
It's this. I'm in the room in my house which is furthest away from the router. So,
Got it.
but you know,
Okay, so next topic.
did we say we were going to go Muslim Brotherhood? Is that, or did you want to do something else?
I'd like to do something else. I think Muslim
Okay,
Brotherhood is
go
a
for it.
little broad, given some things that are happening, particularly this. I want to talk about this pardon request from Bibi. Um, and you're right.
Let's do
I
it.
mean, I do love that you started your newest Substack talking about the fact that we don't agree on a lot of things. One of them being that I think Bibi is the best thing that's ever happened to Israel ever. Period. Hard stop.
And
And
I think he's a complete toxic disaster. So there you
yeah,
go.
so I think we have some disagreements there. Um, but so anyway, I mean, Andrew, I have to be honest. Like, I've talked to you about this before. When I look at your Substack, you are a machine. Like, I'm like, I thought you were a prolific writer, but when Netanyahu submitted a 111 page pardon request, I'm like, okay, well, maybe Andrew's not that great.
That's one off.
No,
That's a one off. Can you do it consistently day in, day out? Can you
no.
do it on a rainy? Can you do it on a rainy evening in Stoke? That's
Well,
a British football joke. British people will have got
yeah,
that.
that those
Americans will
always
be
go
like,
right over
"What's?"
my
I'll be
head.
like, "What's a Stoke?" And you're right
I
to ask what a Stoke is. It's a
Go
terrible,
ahead. What
terrible
is it?
place. It's a terrible, terrible place. Never go there.
Okay.
It's a town in the
That
West Midlands in the UK,
okay. Sounds like a
former
really
industrial.
good joke that went over my head.
Now, like I said, the Brits will be all over it, but I saw Ash
Okay.
Gould's on here. He'll get that 100%. He can WhatsApp me and confirm. But yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay.
moving
Yeah.
on. Go on.
Most of your
110
sports
page.
analogies, even when they're American, just go right over my head. So I just, I do the thing. I nod my head and smile. I'm sure it's clever. Um,
It's
but
pretty clever.
honestly, like, so Trump gave his suggestion at the Knesset 48 days ago, which gave Bibi significant time to write 111 pages. You're right. He's
Slow.
not doing it in a day. That's an average of, about a little more than 2 pages a day. I think even I can knock that out.
Amateur.
But, huh?
Amateur.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, okay, now I'm going to say the most naive thing in the history of the world, but I don't mind making a fool of myself. I literally thought, okay, so Bibi, Trump says you have to pardon Bibi, and Bibi's like, yeah, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. I really thought that when he finally decided to do it, it would like be more along the lines of like, please pardon me, you know why. Like, I was not expecting 111 pages, but I saw this morning that Trump has invited Bibi back to the White House this morning. So my guess is, because Sunday is not a work day in America like it is in Israel, that today is the day after yesterday, and Trump is pleased. I also, Herzog, I can't even guess. I mean, I know that this morning Amit Segal said, it will be a yes, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't fully understand like how this relationship between president and prime minister really shakes out when they're really not aligned. So hopefully,
Did you see Herzog's most recent statement?
I think I did.
Yeah, he said he'd do what's in the best interests of
Yeah,
Israeli society, and that's what
sure.
he's going to predicate his decision on. Also, have you seen the polls in Israel? That's really, I think that would inform my opinion on this. Look, I don't generally do Israeli domestic politics except
Hmm.
in the spaces where it affects the conflict, because you can't take
Yeah.
politics and conflict separate. They're inextricably intertwined. So I don't really have much opinion on domestic stuff, but it's worth, if you're going to try and form an opinion, if you want to put me on the spot,
Hmm.
if you look at the opinion polls, about half of, just about under half, oppose a
Sure.
pardon. 36% approve of it, rising to 38% if it comes with a clause that he leaves politics forever after he's pardoned. To me, this boils down to one really simple thing. Like, my personal opinion of Bibi aside, completely parked to one side, if this is going to literally tear Israeli society in half because 50% of people oppose it, then it doesn't feel like a good decision, would be my kind of take, regardless of who the person being pardoned is. That's
Okay,
kind of where I sit on it.
but okay, here
Not
comes,
being Israeli, not
yes.
having a dog in the fight, as it were.
I could argue the same thing, though, that if 50% are for, 50% against, it's going to run the country either way. So I think that what's in the country's best interest. You're
Well,
very
well,
heavy
look,
on the.
the difference is one is status quo, one is a change. So I think if you're 50-50 split, you surely go with the status quo rather than the radical
It's
change.
status quo, other than the fact that that a decision was made, which is a pivotal point, regardless of which way it goes, and can incite people on either side. And I also want to reiterate what so many people just don't want to admit is that Israel is a democracy. They're not just a democracy, they're like a double down democracy. Everyone gets to play. Like, there are like 150,000 different parties. Anyone can get a seat in the Knesset. And the thing is about a coalition, it's not just about Likud. And I, quite honestly, in the next elections, I don't know who's going to be able to put together a coalition. Maybe Bennett, but even when Bennett was in power, what we have to understand about, this is totally not what I want to talk about, but what we need to understand about Netanyahu is, he, first of all, he does have about 50% approval ratings, which is more than pretty much any president of the United States ever, and we're considered to be a democracy. So I think that this is also a function of everything that goes on in Israel goes on under this incredible magnifying glass that is like, not only magnifies it 2 times to create double standards, 3 times to create triple standards, but we have to like, oh my God, I think I have to like move. But anyway, the fact is, this is a democracy, and we have a guy who was voted into power, and it's honestly, in my estimation, ridiculous that the commander of the longest, most existential and complex war in the history of the nation should be forced to spend 3 days. I know it's going to sound like a BB talking point, but it is. That he's spending 3 days a week in this kangaroo court on these trumped up charges of corruption that like involves things like Bugs Bunny dolls and in cigars, and even the media. There's a lot of people in the media that are biased one way or another. In America, there isn't a single media organization that isn't biased in one direction or another. And I feel like this is just more like lawfare, exactly the same that goes on in America, in the UN, in all the places. And if I were to put myself in his shoes, first of all, I think he has the hardest job literally in the world, but I'm not sure how he's even been able to execute this war effort thus far for the last 2.5 years. But with every front simmering to a boil once again, it sure seems inevitable that the region is going to explode probably imminently, not just like more attacks, but an actual explosion of everything. And Israel needs a commander in chief who could focus on his job so they could finish the job. He's not against new elections, unlike our friend Trump, who may go for a third term.
I don't think so.
Bibi is voted in. That's how it works. Okay. So even to strong on him and say, I'll give you a pardon if you leave politics, I don't think is again fair in a democracy. The people can choose, and the Likud party can choose who their leader is going to be. And I know there's this argument, of course, against pardoning him for reasons of due process, right? Like, so unlike America, where pardons are handed out like Halloween candy or Oprah gifts, depending on your perspective, in Israel, pardons aren't meant to be granted without admission of guilt. However, there is a precedent in 1986 where 11 Shin Bet agents were pardoned before trial and a conviction in a case involving killing some terrorists on a terrorist bus attack. So as controversial as the pardon was, it is on the books. It set a precedent, and I personally do think it would serve the whole nation if Herzog reads 111 pages and grants the pardon. Oh, and Trump
Yeah.
says so too.
Yeah, and also I think that's a bad look as well. The fact that Trump's waded in here, Israel already faces allegation of being a kind of U.S. puppet state. To then have the U.S. president telling the Israeli president what to do, it doesn't sit quite well. And Bibi's done a great job since 7th of October. Thank goodness he took over from the guy who was in charge in the run up to 7th of October. Where's the accountability for the failures that led
Well,
to that day is another question that perhaps needs answering at some point for Israel.
yeah, perhaps. I gotta move. I'm listening. I gotta move.
I could see you like butt scooting along.
I'm like, you can't even see my face anymore. Here we go. Hello. Okay, go on. Sorry. No, I understand what you're saying. I don't think it's going to change anything as far as what people believe about America controlling Israel. And by the way, did you see today that Trump basically threatened Herzog and said, dude, you actually better grant this pardon? Oh, you didn't see that?
Yeah, no, but that's a
So
terrible look. Terrible look.
okay, it is a terrible look, but Andrew, I think this comes back to like the fundamental disagreement that you and I have over just about everything having to do with looks and PR, which is the fact that everything is a bad look. And I accept that this is a Sisyphean battle that Israel just there's
That's the
just no way to
second week running. You've busted out Sisyphean.
Yep, I'm gonna have to put that into every single show. But you have to admit, Israel is the Sisyphus right now. But
Well, you see my
uh,
article today. I've suggested a way I think you can fix it, but I know you're in the kind of we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas school of PR for
that's
Israel.
not no, that's not my school at all. I actually agree with everything you say, Andrew. But I actually speak from experience on this one because my background before yoga was in marketing and advertising, and my brother is a big PR guy, so I understand that world pretty well. And I could tell you this in the most simple terms: press releases or whatever, it doesn't matter what form you take. It doesn't matter if it's a diaspora ministry of communications or anything like that. Press is only as good as the people who are willing to print it. And right now, legacy media and social media take everything that Israel says in any form, including, it's not even Israel. Let's look at Mossab Hassan Youssef. Okay, he's not an official representative of Israel. But nobody knows Hamas better than he does. His father was one of the founders of Hamas, and he writes stuff. And literally, the answer all over is, "Oh, you're just a sellout. You don't know what you're talking about. You're whatever." Fill in the like cuss word in Arabic for being a traitor and all the things. People don't take this stuff seriously. I watch Gilad Ardan. I watch Danny Danone at the UN. They have unbelievable statements, and they do cover everything that you said should be covered in your article. Nobody cares. They ridicule them. They twist it. They say it's all Israeli lies and propaganda, and so it's not that I disagree on any level with the ideas that you have. I agree with them 100%. But if I write an article right now on a piece of paper, okay, unless it gets printed somewhere, it doesn't matter. That's what we're up against.
And that's the challenge. I completely agree. But there are other cleverer ways that I'm not going to dig into right now because, frankly, it's an idea I'm trying to sell.
Okay.
But there are much cleverer ways you can do this on the internet these days. And I think there's a way to hit that silent majority and get them slightly more engaged. So that's my theory. We'll see if it works or not.
I hope we still have a silent majority. I think people are relying on polls from a year or 2 years ago when we say that. I mean, when I look at newer polls, there's no majority. And again, like I've said this before, I live in like the bubbliest of bubbles here in West LA where everyone is a far left radical. So it's hard for me to see the forest through the trees. But where I'm sitting, it's all anti-Israel, even the Jews.
Yeah. But, and actually, that's interesting. I had a conversation with people who, yeah, I won't go into it. It's a private conversation. But yeah, I've had insights into that, shall we say. But
Yeah.
the, the the overall silent majority, I'm, you go out where I live, nobody cares. Nobody cares about the Middle East. Nobody gives a shit. You know,
Yeah.
Israel or not, they'll probably go, "Oh yeah, Israel's bad. They bomb Gaza," but that's all really they know about it, and it's not enough to make them mobilise or really have an opinion that can't be changed. So I think there are people that can be spoken to out there. And my limpy dog's just turned up. She's got a poorly paw, bless her. She wanted a fuss, so that's what distracted me.
Oh, what's wrong with her? What's wrong with your
She's
little dog?
she's got a split nail. Not a little dog. She's a very large dog.
Oh,
Bix, Bix, come here and milk the sympathy of the internet. Come
she and
on.
I will have to commiserate
Disastrous.
together over our
Yeah,
injuries.
there you go. She would normally jump up, but she's too milking her injury. I look at her hobbling off.
Aw.
Absolute drama queen.
Yeah. I'm moving you back here a little bit. Okay.
Okay, right. Should we draw stumps at that point to bring you back to a cricket analogy? Because I need to go and have my dinner. I'm starving.
Okay, yeah. We don't have to go into another cricket analogy because it doesn't even matter what you say unless it involves the word cricket. I'll have no idea what you're talking about, and I'll probably just think you're talking about a bug anyway.
Jiminy cricket.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Well,
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I think this is a record number. Looking at the numbers at the top, I think this is our highest ever turnout.
no, it's not. We had
Not
almost
quite.
around 200 one time. But I'll
Okay,
take
well, still
107.
107 people have joined us, and we're really
Ah,
grateful for you being here. And
108. And by
108.
the way, 108 is a magical number both in yoga and in Judaism. So let's hope no one else shows up. This is super magical right here.
But thank you. And if you're watching this on YouTube later after the live, please do like, subscribe. Please do go to Shana's Substack and subscribe to her. If you subscribe to me, thank you very much. I'm really grateful for your support. Big things hopefully happening in 26. I'm lining up my first war zone trips as we speak. And some of them are going to be pretty unusual and unique. So stick around and I'll give you my reports off the back of it. But please do also
Looking
go to the Yoga of War, subscribe to Shana, and thank you very much.
Yeah, before we end, I always have to finish. It seems that Hamas has found another hostage body that it's refusing to hand over this morning. Ran Gavili is the last Israeli hostage. His murdered body is being held captive along with Sudisak Rintalak. I think of his name every day, and I have no idea how to actually say it, and I feel terrible. He's a Thai worker who was also massacred, and I just have to say that both of their families at this point are completely and utterly tormented. I implore everyone who is listening, if you have ever stood up for any hostage, please do not give up on these last two. We can't abandon them. We can't abandon their loved ones, and we cannot rest until they are home to rest in peace.
Okay, well, thank you very much again. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.
L'chaim. I'll see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye.